Hey everyone, it's Carissa Wiley here for Pinkfresh Studio. Thanks for joining me today. Today I am hoping to answer all of your questions about foiling with the Pinkfresh Studio Hot Foil plates. And I am going to show you both the Gemini FoilPress as well as the Spellbinders Glimmer Hot Foil machine. Now, both of these systems will do the same thing in that they will provide the heat and the necessary pressure that you need to transfer foil onto your project. And I recommend that you choose the machine that's compatible with whatever die cut machine that you have. So the Gemini FoilPress is compatible with the Gemini Junior. And I have everything out that kind of comes with these machines so you can kind of get a glimpse at it. Now, no matter what machine you have, the principles of foiling are the same with both machines. The FoilPress has a few more buttons that you'll notice up at the top. It has an adjustable timer and it does have some audible sounds. So just keep that in mind. I'm kind of showing you all these settings up here. There's different heat settings. There is a digital timer with a audible sound when that timer goes off, and then there's a start button. Now this machine comes with an instruction manual, the necessary shims that you need to create the pressure while going through the Gemini Junior, and it also has this metal plate here, and I'm going to show you a cool trick you can do with that later, as well as a cooling pad. Now mine also came with a couple of these finger covers to protect your fingers and a pair of magnetic tweezers. And honestly, I use the magnetic tweezers. I don't use those little finger cover things. Now, likewise, the Glimmer Machine. This one is compatible with the Spellbinders Platinum 6. It is also compatible with something like the Sizzix Big Shot. Now, you can always check the Spellbinders website as well to check to see if your machine is compatible with the Glimmer Hot Foil system. Now, originally, the Glimmer Hot Foil system came with the magnetic tweezers as well. They now have a magnetic pickup tool in their new kit, so keep that in mind. I have the older kit here. This system also comes with the necessary plates that you need, a cooling pad, as well as the instruction manual. And you'll want to hold on to those instruction manuals. They are valuable, especially when you're trying different techniques. Now I'm kind of shifting this so you can see the area of the heated platforms. They are a little bit different. The FoilPress measures about 5 1/4 by 7 3/4 inches. The Glimmer about 5 3/4 by 6 1/2. They're very similar. And they both come with the cords that you need to plug them in because they do require electricity. Now the rubberized portion that you're seeing, that's the part that actually heats up, the part that my hand is on. That's going to get warm, and that is going to transfer heat to your foil plate and allow that to kind of warm up, and the heat and pressure combined is what's going to transfer the foil to your project. Now, I just want to give you a good look at both machines, and I want you to understand at the end of all of this that the principles are really the same. So now we're looking at the platform of the Gemini FoilPress. It plugs into the base. And here is the platform for the Glimmer Hot Foil system. Once again, this plugs into the base, and you will use these platforms to pass through whatever die cut machine that you have to apply the pressure to the heated hot foil plate. So I'm just giving you a little side by side so you can kind of see the size difference. One's a little wider and one's a little narrower and longer. In the end, the hot foil plates that you have are going to work with either one of these machines. Now to turn on the Glimmer machine, you're just going to flip that switch over at the top. And for the FoilPress, there is a switch on the side as well as a button on the top. Now this button is going to turn the machine on to where it starts heating. And this little light here indicates that I have the FoilPress set to the lowest heat setting. There is a medium and a high setting as well. And I find that the lower medium setting is really sufficient for whatever paper project I'm working on. Now, with both of these systems, you can foil on things other than paper. I'm not going to get into that today. I just want to go through basics. But I have both of these turned on, and I am going to set my timer to about 15 seconds for the FoilPress. That's about what I tend to use, 15 to 20 seconds. Now, on the Glimmer Hot Foil system, there is no heat adjustment. It is one size fits all as far as the heat, and this is going to light up green when the platform is ready. And there is one button. it's the timer button. Once the platform is ready, you will hit that timer button, and that is just one timer. It's about a minute long, and that is how long they recommend heating up on their platform. Now I'm allowing both of these machines to heat up side by side, and I like to put the plates on top while they're heating up. I feel like it just keeps some of the heat in the platform so that they heat up a little bit faster. And I will tell you that it took about 3 minutes for the Gemini FoilPress to heat up completely, and about 6 minutes for the Glimmer Hot Foil system to heat up completely and tell me it was ready. Now, while these machines are heating up, I want to talk about the foil that you use with these machines. These are heat transfer foils. They work with heat and pressure and those plates to transfer the foil to your project. Now, keep in mind, either one of these brands will work with either machine. These are hot foils. They are different than a toner reactive foil that you would use with like a mink machine or a toner reactive sheet of some sort. So you want to make sure that you have the right foil. These come in so many different colors. There are some really beautiful foils out there. And I wanted you to look at this foil with me. Now on every roll of foil, there is a pretty or a shiny side. That's the side you want to see on your finished project. And the back side is very dull. It's a silver color on all the rolls that I've ever seen. So you want to make sure that you know the right and the wrong side of your foil. And we're going to go over that as we actually do some foiling here in just a bit. Now keep that in mind because this is really important when we start building our sandwich and we start the foiling process. Now, one thing I do want to point out in the Gemini Crafter's Companion Hot Foil rolls, there are two different types of rolls. There are paper craft rolls and there are multi-surface rolls. If you are working on paper, you need to pick up the paper craft rolls. If you are working on another surface like leather or fabric, you may want to pick up the multi-surface rolls. Now those Glimmer rolls, they don't make a distinction, so I am assuming, I have never tried it, that they work on all surfaces. Now, as I was talking, the light turned green on my Gemini FoilPress, so I know it's heated up and ready to go. Now, let's take a look at the hot foil plates, or some companies call them hot foil stamps. Pinkfresh refers to them as hot foil plates. This is a large, raised, flat area that creates the design. So this is the design side of the hot foil plate. The back side is the flat, smooth surface. It is not a cutting blade. You can also foil with your dies, and this is a regular cutting die from Pinkfresh Studio. I'm going to show you how to foil with the regular dies as well. But it's important to note that hot foil plates or hot foil stamps will not cut your paper. They're just there like a stamp. Now, when you're working with cardstock, the best thing that you can do is choose a smooth cardstock. You will get the best results on a smooth cardstock. And I am going to show you how to build your sandwich here. Now, I want you to keep in mind that although the machines are different, the principles of both machines are the same. So you're going to see me build my sandwich in the very same way, whether I'm using the Gemini FoilPress or the Spellbinders Glimmer Machine. Now, when you're building your sandwich, you always want the pretty side of your foil to touch the design side of your plate. Think about it like a stamp and your foil is the ink. You want the pretty side to ink up your stamp. Now you can build your sandwich on the platform or you can build it on your work surface. And the other thing that you want to remember is that your foil, the dull or the back side of your foil will always touch the paper. So the pretty side will always touch the design side of your hot foil plate and the dull side will always touch your paper. Doesn't matter what foil machine you're using. It doesn't matter what foil you're using. You will always have the pretty side of the foil facing the design of your hot foil plate and the back side of the foil or the dull side of your foil touching the paper. Because in the end, when you pull this up, you want to be left with that pretty foil on the cardstock. So once you have that kind of arranged on your work surface, you can take this entire thing and place it with the hot foil plate backside touching the platform. Now I've taken this all apart so that you can see how to build it on your platform instead. I'm taking my hot foil plate and I'm laying it with the back side touching the heated platform. I'm taking the pretty side of my foil and making sure it's touching the design of my hot foil plate. And then that dull side of the foil is facing up, and so I know my cardstock will touch that. Now, all of these sandwiches you're going to finish off with the shim that comes with either foil system. And once I have that in place, I'm going to hit my timer button to start my 15-second timer. And I left that little beep in there so that you can hear that the foil press does make an audible sound when the timer runs out and also when it is fully heated. And once that timer runs out, I can remove the platform from the base and run it through my Gemini Junior. Now, I am not going to run this through twice. I'm only going to run it through once. I'm going to bring it back over and I can plug in the platform to make sure that it stays nice and hot. And I can take a look and see that I have pressed that foil in the design of that hot foil plate onto my cardstock. I can see that I have a good transfer. Now I'll use my magnetic tweezers here to remove that plate from the hot foil platform so that I can kind of set it aside. And then I'm going to show you that you just take the foil, pull up the edge, and reveal the beautiful foiled image that's left on your cardstock. Isn't that gorgeous? I absolutely love foiling. Now, embossing is great, but there is nothing like foil in my opinion. So now that I have that foiled, I'm going to take the coordinating die and I'm going to position it over the top of this foiled image. Make sure that I have it in place. I'm going to use some removable tape to hold it in place, and then I will use my regular die cutting plates in my die cutting sandwich and run that through my Gemini Junior to die cut this foiled image. And I'm going to tell you that when you combine die cutting and foiling, you've just hit next level. It is so gorgeous, and I love the intricacy of the coordinating dies with these sentiments from the Pinkfresh Studio line. Look at that. It is so beautiful. Now keep in mind, you can create this on any colored cardstock. That foil is going to show up on dark cardstock, it's going to show up on light cardstock, and it's absolutely beautiful no matter what you do. Okay, so let's do the same thing, but this time we're going to use the Spellbinders Glimmer Hot Foil system. I'm cutting my foil down to the size to make sure that the entire design of the hot foil plate will be covered with foil. And I am going to trim off some of the excess on this. Now, I find that it's a little more important when using the Glimmer Hot Foil system to trim off the excess and make sure that your foil is close to the size of your plate. The more excess foil that you have, the more likely you are to get over foiling when you foil. So if you are having a problem with either machine with over foiling, try trimming your foil a little bit closer to the design. Now, just because we're using a different system doesn't mean that the principles change, but I do want to point out that the Glimmer does have 2 shims that you use when you're building your sandwich in order to create the correct amount of pressure. Now, just like before, when I'm building up this sandwich, I'm going to make sure that the dull side of my foil is touching my cardstock. So I have that back side touching the cardstock. The pretty side of the foil will always touch the design of the hot foil plate, and that hot foil plate, that back side, will always touch the heated platform. Now, if you're building on your work surface and flipping it over onto the platform, then you will always start with your cardstock. If you are building right directly on the heated platform, you will always start with your hot foil plate and place that back side towards the heated element. Then I can place the shiny side of my foil facing the design of my hot foil plate, which leaves the dull back side of the foil facing my cardstock. So I'll finish that off with the cardstock. And then I will add my thin spacer shim and the second shim that's required for the Glimmer Hot Foil system. Now, once I have that all in place, I know that my platform is ready because the light is green, and I will hit the timer button. Now, that timer button is going to blink for about a minute, and then it's going to go solid. There's no sound on this to let you know that it's done. It does kind of make a little click sound when it clicks off, but it's not an audible noise per se. And once I have that timer run down, I'm going to remove the platform from the base, and I'm going to run it through my Spellbinders Platinum 6. Now I went a little bit slow, and then I put this back over onto the base, and I'm going to flip this over to make sure that I have pressure all in those areas. And once I know that I have a good transfer, I'm going to remove the foil. Now I'm going to show you on this image here, I did get a little bit of overfoiling. You can see it around the tail of the T up at the top, but that is really not a big deal for two reasons. Number one, I'm going to be die cutting this out. The other reason it's not a big deal is I can use a sand eraser or a regular white photopolymer eraser and remove that extra foiling. Now, one thing I do want to point out is with every manufacturer, there may be slight variances in your die cut machine and the amount of pressure that it uses, or in the thickness of the plates. If you're not getting good results with your foiling, it could be one of two things. It's either that you have too little or too much pressure, or you have too little or too much heat. So those are really the two elements that make for the foiling process. So if you're kind of struggling with that, try adding a shim or try taking away a shim. Those kinds of things are things that you may have to experiment with, but once you really get to know your machine a little bit better, I think you'll get great results. Now I'm going to foil with a regular die. This is a regular wafer thin die. This is a die from Pinkfresh Studio, and I wanted to show you that you can actually foil with these dies as well. So I'm cutting my foil to size, and I'm going to trim off a little bit of the excess. And I want to point out that just because I'm using a die doesn't mean I'm going to change the way that I build my sandwich. I still want to lay the back side of the die facing towards the heated element or the heated platform. I want the pretty side of the foil to face the design of my die. So you can see I'm building it up on my platform. I'm going to lay that foil with the pretty side facing the cutting blades of my die. And that means that the dull side is facing up, and I can lay my cardstock on top of that. And then I'll finish this off by adding the shim or the plate that comes with the Gemini FoilPress, and I will start my 15-second timer with that start button. Once the timer runs out, I am going to remove the platform from the base and run that through my Gemini Junior. And you're going to see that just like with my hot foil plates, I will have the cutting blades of that design. That design will be pressed in to my cardstock. So I've added the heat and the pressure necessary to transfer that foil into that design. Now, because dies are meant to cut and cutting lines are very thin, there is not a lot of foil like there is with a foil plate, because that foil plate has a lot of flat, broad areas to transfer the foil. This is a much more delicate look, but I think it's a great way to add a little touch of foil to your project. Now let's do the same thing with the Glimmer Machine. Once again, I have the same die. It is laid with the backside facing the heated platform and the design or the cutting blade facing up. I'm going to trim down my foil and place that with the pretty side facing the blades of the die, which would be considered my design of my hot foil plate. And I'm going to position that over, I'm having a little difficulty here. But once I get that in place, I see that my dull side is facing up, and I know that the dull side of my foil will always face my cardstock. So I'm going to lay my cardstock on top, and then I have the two shims that come with the Glimmer Machine. So I'm going to place those on top. But between this shim and the plate, I am going to actually add a cardstock shim. I found that I just needed a little more pressure with this die. I hit my timer button, and once the timer ran out, I removed the platform from the base and ran that through my Spellbinders Platinum 6 die cutting machine. Now I'm going to remove this here, and you can see I have that pressed in, and I can just peel up the edge of the foil. I had a little bit harder time getting in here. And I did get some overfoiling on this design as well, but I can always remove that with my eraser. So you can see I have the design of that die pressed into my paper with that foil. Now keep in mind, you can play with the amount of pressure that you're using by adding or taking away shims. Now here's something really fun to do with the Gemini FoilPress. It comes with this metal plate. You can actually place that onto the heated platform, and that is going to act like your hot foil plate. So I'm just going to allow this to heat up. And in my hand here, I have a white die cut. This is cut from some plain white cardstock. Now, just like before, I want to transfer this foil to this cardstock die cut. So I'm going to make sure that the dull side of my foil is facing the paper. And the pretty side of my foil is going to face my plate or the design of my plate. But in this case, I have this metal plate that came with the Gemini FoilPress. So the pretty side of my foil is going to face this heated plate. Now there's no design on this. This is perfectly flat. But what's going to happen is it's going to allow this to heat up that foil and press it with pressure onto this die cut piece. So once again, the principles don't change. The dull side will always face the cardstock. The pretty side will always face the design of my plate. But in this instance, the design of my plate is just flat. Now I have a lot of extra foil around this and I don't want to trim it down. So I'm just going to add a piece of cardstock behind my die cut so that I don't foil the shim that I'm going to place on top of this. I am going to set my timer to 20 seconds and you'll notice here that I am using the medium heat on my Gemini FoilPress. Now once the timer runs out, I'm going to remove the platform from the base and run that through my Gemini Junior. Now I do want to mention that this plate is available for purchase on its own. So if you wanted to try this with the Glimmer Machine, I'm sure you can. The other thing you could do is build up multiple shims to create the pressure that you need in order to transfer that foil onto your die cut. But when I remove this, I can see that I actually have that foil transferred onto my die cut. And that is thanks to the heat provided by that plate and the pressure of all of it together. And you can see when I remove my foil, I have a perfectly foiled die cut and I'm dropping it. So here's a good look at that. I have foil all over the face of this die cut, and that started out as just a plain white die cut. Now you can use the same method and actually transfer foil onto plain cardstock as well. It doesn't have to be a die cut. And I kind of wanted to show you a variation of that using this leftover piece of foil here. Now I had foiled a piece of cardstock using the hot foil plate from Pinkfresh Studio, the Bougainvelliea one. And this was my leftover piece of foil. So I am going to keep that plate, that metal plate, on my Gemini FoilPress. And I am going to position this with the pretty side of my foil facing my plate, the dull side of my foil facing my cardstock. And then I added a cardstock shim and the shim that comes with the foil press to complete my sandwich. And I'm going to run that through my Gemini Junior die cut machine after I heated it up for 20 seconds. And you're going to see that I have the foil transferred onto the cardstock and I have the negative or the reverse of that Bougainvelliea plate. Now, when I went to go pull this back, I noticed that I didn't get full transfer. So I'm just going to actually place that back down. I'm going to put it right back on to my foil press with that metal plate in place. And this time I'm going to add 2 cardstock shims and then the shim that comes with the foil press. And I'm going to start my timer for 20 seconds. Now, when the 20-second timer runs out, I'm going to run that through my Gemini Junior again. I just felt like I needed a little more pressure to properly transfer all that foil. And when it comes out, you're going to see I can remove the backer to this foil. The foil always will have this plastic backer that you need to remove. So even if you're doing a solid piece like that, you're going to remove that and look at that. I have a beautiful foiled image that I can die cut, and that is a lot of foil there. And that was just created using my leftover piece. Now you see that little kind of diagonal line at the corner, the bottom corner there. I got that because I didn't get full transfer the first time and I had removed a little bit of that foil. So if you do it right the first time, you won't have that little line in there. Now I'm going to make a couple of simple cards today featuring foiling, and I'm starting out by foiling this Bougainvelliea background hot foil plate onto some pink cardstock using some rose gold foil. I think this is absolutely beautiful, and I love to experiment with the different colors of foil on different colored cardstock. These show up on dark and light cardstock alike. Now, I also foiled the Best Wishes sentiment from Pinkfresh Studio onto some plain Nina Solar White heavyweight cardstock. And now I'm going to use the coordinating die to die cut that sentiment. And I'm actually going to use the coordinating die and die cut it several times so that I can stack it up and add some dimension behind this foiled piece. So I'm just using my regular die cutting sandwich to send this through my Gemini Junior. And I'm going to be left with a beautiful die-cut foiled sentiment. Now for this thank you so much piece that I created earlier in the video, I thought it would be beautiful on that rectangle that I foiled with the regular diagonal stitch die. And I wanted to add a little bit of a floral pattern behind it. So I have this Keep Going stamp here. This is a floral cluster from the Keep Going stamp set from Pinkfresh Studio. I'm inking it up with the Misty Coast ink and stamping that onto that rectangle. I just trimmed that down. It has the foil on it. So yes, I'm stamping right over the foil. No big deal. And I am going to then take this piece of cardstock and rotate it 180 degrees. So that I can stamp it in the other corner. So once again, I'm going to ink that up with the Misty Coast ink from Pinkfresh Studio and stamp it into the other corner. Now I'm going to tell you that I finished these cards off really simply because I really wanted this video to be kind of getting you a little more comfortable with the foiling process and hopefully answering all your questions. So I've taken elements that I've created throughout this video process and just combined them together to create some really simple cards. I have that Bougainvelliea background there that's foiled onto the pink cardstock and my Best Wishes sentiment that I've just stacked up to add some dimension, along with a little vellum curvy leafy piece there. And then finally, this card here with that stamped background that I just created. And I finished this off with just a few little jewels from Pinkfresh Studio. And you can see I actually stacked up that thank you so much sentiment as well to add a little bit of dimension to this card. So there you have it, 2 cards featuring some beautiful foiled and die cut images using the Pinkfresh Studio hot foil plates. Keep in mind that the principles for foiling are the same no matter what platform you're using and no matter what company's hot foil plates that you are using. I use the beautiful Pinkfresh Studio hot foil plates today, but the foiling principles stay the same no matter which brand that you're using. Now, as always, I will have links to the featured products used in these projects in the description at YouTube. So if you're looking for something in particular, be sure you check there. I'm so glad that you've joined me today, and I hope I really have addressed a lot of your questions about foiling with both the Spellbinders Glimmer Hot Foil system and the Gemini Junior FoilPress system. I absolutely love the look of foiled designs on my card projects. I think it just brings it to the next level. And I think that once you start trying this out for yourself and kind of really experimenting and playing, you're going to really enjoy the process and the finished results that you get when you're using these hot foil plates. Thanks for stopping by and hanging out with me today. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video and I hope you learned so much. If you did, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the Pinkfresh Studio YouTube channel here so you don't miss any of our paper crafting and card making video tutorials. As always, thanks again for watching, and until next time, I hope you have a fabulous day.